Hey there and welcome back to GetIndieGaming. We've had a fantastic start to the year with some incredible new indie games coming out in early 2023. But what's in store for March? Well, you're in luck because today we'll be diving into the top 10 upcoming indie game releases for the month of March 2023. Up first, and at this month's number 10, we have Mr. Saitou, with me placing it within this month's rundown kind of on a hunch. To be honest, I don't have too much info about this, however, I understand it's a game which features what's called an average white-collar worker who's struggling to find meaning within their life. He's constantly working overtime, with him also feeling a sense of social isolation. You play as the titular character who, after an accident, finds himself in hospital, where he's spirited away to a weird and strange fantasy world where he meets with a character who looks to take you on a life-changing adventure. I'm certainly drawn to how all of this looks. The pixel artwork, well, it looks a delight, as does the original soundtrack, which on the face of things will sit rather nicely with the visuals and the on-screen antics. I do understand the game is supposedly short and can be completed within one sitting, however, what that means in actual playtime, well, at the moment, I just don't know. However, I get the feeling I'm going to enjoy Mr. Saitou, with it coming to PC via Steam on March the 23rd. If you, like me, love your pixel art, why not check out my top 10 pixel art video games to play in 2023? You can find a link to this video on screen now or down in the video's description. Up next, and at number 9, Melon Journey Bittersweet Memories ticks those retro-looking boxes rather nicely. There's something rather comforting here in how all of this looks with its greens and blacks, and it reminds me of the kind of games I'd have played on my Game Boy in the very early 1990s, although this has far better visuals. The aesthetic looks genuinely charming, although under the surface of this story exploration game lies a web of corruption and crime. You play as a little rabbit called Honeydew, who works as an employee at a melon factory. One of your friends is missing and your character takes leave of their job during one of her shifts to travel by train to a place called Hogtown, where, interestingly enough, melons are banned and there's corruption everywhere. According to the Steam homepage, the game will consist of around 5 or so hours of gameplay, so I'm thinking this one is for a couple of hours of sittings, say over the course of a weekend. Again, I like how cute all of this looks, with it hitting just the right notes of nostalgia for memories of playing games from a very long time ago. I'm also looking forward to seeing what the developers have done with the story and how they've been able to create what they're calling a town full of adorable animals and eccentric personalities. Melon Journey Bittersweet Memories comes out on the 7th of March on PC via Steam, GOG, Humble, and also onto the usual consoles. Up next, Outlanders is a city-stroke-town building strategy game that's been on iOS for quite a while, with it coming to PC on March the 7th. If you're familiar with similar games such as SimCity or perhaps Populous, or the more recent City Skyline, then you're likely to feel right at home with this one. However, unlike similar games, Outlanders features a campaign offering players a string of complex mission-based levels, each with their own specific goals and associated story. I'm looking forward to seeing how all this plays out, and I'm hopeful Outlanders will be a calming and peaceful game and one I can relax into without having to think too hard. At the time this video goes up, there's a PC demo to try via the game's Steam homepage, and you can find a link to this down in the video description. At number 7, Figment 2 Creed Valley is naturally enough the sequel to Figment, which came out in September of 2017. We featured the first game at launch, so we're all really looking forward to seeing what the team have done with this follow-up. You'll once again play as Dusty and Piper in a new adventure as you journey to Creed Valley to help defeat the nightmares that have been unleashed within. The music aspect of the first game looks to have been built upon, with the sequel having musical boss battles, as have the visuals, which look even more like something you'd see in the pages of a comic book. We're also hyped to see how the new local co-op mode pans out, with another player able to take control of Piper and play alongside Dusty, which should make for a nice additional touch. Figment 2 Creed Valley is coming to PC and all of the other usual consoles.
Once upon a time, there was a story of heartbreak. It begins when Adam falls in love with Eve. Till one day, Eve dies, and Adam mourns her in heartbreak. And yet, it can also end the other way around.
Moving on, and at number 6, Storyteller is an intriguing concept where you, the player, build and shape the story using comic panel-based puzzle mechanics. As you can see from the footage here, players are able to manipulate the comic book's panels by selecting from the various animations and then dragging them into their place within the panels. In so doing, you get to decide upon the story and what happens as the various tales unfold. We're thinking this all looks rather delightful, and there should be plenty fun to be had in manipulating the characters to create weird and wonderful tales full of love, lies, villainy, and no doubt plenty of death. On paper, pun duly intended, Storyteller might be one of the unsung little gems to come out this year, and so far, we haven't seen too many people talking about it. Storyteller is due out on March the 23rd on PC and the Nintendo Switch, where we're thinking the touchscreen display will really come into its element. At number 5, Terra Nil is the second city builder to feature this month, although this one comes with a slight twist, with you looking to transform a barren, lifeless landscape into a thriving and vibrant ecosystem. So essentially, this is a city builder but in reverse, and while I was initially skeptical of the concept, a few hours with the demo gave me a fabulous insight into the game's inner workings and the type of experience it's likely to offer. On that, we as a small collective agreed the emotion we most felt in playing was that of mindfulness, that you're making something from nothing, as it were, and once you start to see the world in front of you coming back to life, it's somewhat joyous. I appreciate how pretentious that might sound, and yet that's honestly how we left the demo, and why we're happy to have a second game of this kind within our best indie games of March 2023 rundown. Terra Nil is coming out on PCs via Steam and GOG on March the 28th. At number 4, we have a game that's getting plenty of exposure, and we're more than happy to shine yet another spotlight in its direction. Fishing games? Well, they're usually peaceful, tranquil types of experiences, often in the form of mini-games from any of our favourite farming sims. Well, not by the looks of things here in Dredge, the debut title from Black Salt Games. While you are tasked with catching and selling fish for the locals in a place called the Greater Marrow, this RPG will also see you come up against all manner of sea beasts and other such horrors in the water. Naturally, there's a whole heap of Lovecraft going on here, what's also a visually stunning looking game. Dredge is coming to PC and all of the usual consoles on March the 30th. We're hoping to receive a copy of the game so we're able to review it before launch, so please be sure to watch out for that video as and when it drops on the channel. At number 3, and headed out towards the end of the month, 9 Years of Shadows is another highly anticipated game to release this March 2023. This looks likely to become another classic pixel art Metroidvania. One of the team here at GetIndieGaming was able to play the demo at PAX West last year. They recalled it started with a brief introduction to the controls before not too long they were thrown into a boss battle that saw them getting killed pretty much immediately. Having done so, the demo took them to a beautifully pixelated castle and then onwards into a few quests before once again doing battle with a few mini-bosses. All in, they were suitably impressed and naturally enough likened it to their hundreds of hours spent with Dead Cells. However, one aspect still has the team here curious: how the game will use music. Developers have stated that music plays an important part and role in the gameplay and storytelling, from collecting musical notes to using a healing lullaby to restore a player's health. With all that said, there's precious little I'd like to add to this preview, with 9 Years of Shadows set to release on almost all platforms on March the 27th. From one gloriously looking pixel art battler to another, and while this technically isn't a new release, anything that's newish or DLC based from Dead Cells is going to feature within our content. As most likely you already know, Dead Cells is a procedurally generated roguelite Metroidvania-inspired action platformer. This new DLC returns to Castlevania, with the developers having called it our very own love letter to the granddad of Dead Cells. Perhaps the bigger surprise of the new DLC is the possibility to play as Richter Belmont, who first appeared in the 1993 Castlevania Rondo of Blood, which certainly plays to our nostalgic feels. What's more, there's classic weapons such as the Vampire Killer, the Throwing Axe, and Holy Water all included. Naturally enough, all this looks exquisite and comes with more than 60 tracks of original reimagined Castlevania music. Dead Cells Return to Castlevania comes to PC, the Switch, PlayStation and Xbox on March the 6th. At number 1 for new releases out this March 2023, we have Hellscreen, a game I featured recently in my top 10 most wanted games of the entire year. There's a link to that video on screen now and down in the video description. There were a few questions in the comments of that video asking if this game was in there as a joke. A few people thought it wasn't up to the same standard visually as the other games in the rundown, and for a first-person shooter, it looks somewhat dated. But that's also another point. For me, as they always have done, gameplay trumps visuals, and to my eye, Hellscreen is an obvious tribute to some of the finest arena shooters from the 90s, such as Doom and Quake and many others. The colour scheme with the use of the reds and cyan against everything else is beautifully sublime, as is that ridiculous but utterly glorious rear view mirror. I've spent a good number of hours with a recent demo of this and really enjoyed my time with it. As far as fast-person shooters go this year, there's very few on my radar that seem so perfectly aimed at my tastes for the genre, even if this is coming out only in early access. This one drops on Steam on May the 9th. That's about it for me today. Please be sure to like the video, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. While you're here, drop me a comment down below and let me know which game you're most looking forward to this March, or even beyond. Many thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon for another indie game video.